I started the recording, and welcome everyone. My name is Becky Rares, and I'll be moderating this session, Karuta, a complete portfolio solution, LTI integrated with Sakai. And as you might be aware, throughout the day, this session's recorded, and you'll get an email announcement once recordings are available. If you have questions during the session, please type them in the questions box in the GoToWebinar panel. And the presenter for this session is Janice Smith. And Janice is the co-owner and portfolio consultant at Three Canoes, LLC, and she's an expert in teaching and learning in higher ed. She's also the lead on the Karuta open source portfolio project and has over a decade of experience implementing open source portfolio projects. Please welcome Janice.
Yes, good afternoon, everyone. It's very nice to talk with you this afternoon, and please do interrupt if you have questions during the session. Becky will make sure that I've seen them and can answer them. The Karuta open source portfolio offers a complete portfolio solution that can also be LTI integrated with Sakai. We have implemented LTI 1 and LTI 2, which allows us so far to appear as a tool in any website in Sakai and to have the user logged in with the correct and the correct permissions in that particular website. As soon as IMS and Sakai permits, we will be integrating tools in Sakai with Karuta, so that's on our roadmap. I'm not going to focus on how it interacts with Sakai because it interacts just as any other LTI tool would, but I'm going to focus on how Karuta is a flexible solution for your portfolio needs. Let's see. Okay. So Karuta last month, in fact, merely a week ago, became an official Apereo project. We have graduated the incubation process and we are a full-fledged member of Apereo. Our partners include HEC Montreal in Canada, IUT2 Grenoble in France, and Kyoto University in Japan. We also have 2 commercial affiliates. We've accomplished 2 releases so far and are scheduling another one this month. And as I mentioned, we're part of Apereo now, and you'll be able to find us under projects and communities as a full-fledged Apereo project. This is a picture of our team. We met a couple of weeks ago in Montreal to do some innovations for an upcoming release in February of Karuta 2.0. Karuta can be used to implement all portfolio types: learning portfolios, assessment portfolios, and showcasing portfolios, focusing on individual learning or on programmatic and institutional improvement or on sharing displays of evidence with other users. Karuta provides dramatic flexibility in designing portfolios in any language. It can also be used for reporting in addition to learning, assessment, and showcasing. It has a modern architecture using jQuery JavaScript on the front end, REST APIs, Java, and MySQL on the back end. As I mentioned, it can be LTI 1, LTI 2 integrated with Sakai, and more integration with Sakai tools to come. It has responsive design working well with all types of devices. And a bonus, if you're using Karuta, your data is not locked in. It has built-in export capabilities to get all of your content out if you want to move to a different platform. A common portfolio requirement is being able to organize different types of resources and artifacts according to a workflow for different users to interact. So to do this, we need a very flexible solution. I'm now going to describe this flexibility in five steps. The first is the architecture. You can think of Karuta as a kind of a tree that's equivalent to a book. A book would have chapters and sections and subsections, and these correspond to the root, the structures, the units, and the unit structures of Karuta. So here we see the root, the structures, the unit structures, and the resources. It is this very tree structure that makes Karuta so flexible to be used for many different purposes and to have content in Karuta repurposed for other purposes. So here's an example of the root is the ESUP portfolio. Learning objectives is a structure, critical thinking is a unit within that structure, and then the various activities within the unit are unit structures and resources. Properties can be performed on these tree elements or nodes. We can use semantic tags to organize and retrieve content. Different roles can perform different actions of reading, editing, deleting, commenting, submitting, showing, and informing. And displays can be modulated via CSS or in free positioning items or using inline forms. Additional operations on trees allow copying information via menus, providing a proxy or a link to information, or reading values for things like rubric criteria. We'll be showing a little bit more about this in a minute. Karuta is ideal for prototyping. A Karuta designer can create a template for students and instructors and pilot it in order to refine the prototype and work through some UI improvement in order to finally arrive at Karuta production and instantiation so that every student has his or her own copy of a portfolio. And the user interface is very flexible. Currently, we're working on transforming the vanilla Karuta that you see on the left and the vanilla iPhone Karuta you see on the right to a more Web 2.0 user interface that I'll be showing in a few minutes. Karuta 1.2 has been specialized at Grenoble with different CSS code and allows also free-form positioning of content by students. I'll show a little bit more about this in a minute. So let's look at how the structures and resources interact in Karuta. So here we see a blank page where the designer, that's you, can add with no coding structures, units, unit structures, and a whole set of resources for directing students and faculty and mentors and preceptors to interact using Karuta. There are additional resources being developed, including a dashboard and specialized resources that allow things like rubrics and reusing content in many different places within Karuta. Karuta has a number of specialized use cases that allow you to build a dashboard, to build a rubric, to build a report. And here's an example of one dashboard that allows the user to self-assess and the evaluator to assess and keep track of the assessments. Here's another dashboard. And inline forms allow typing into fields to do things that are standardized like the EUROPASS resume. Recently we did some performance testing on Karuta. We used, you can see all of this, our results of performance testing by going to GitHub and searching for Karuta project. And here we're showing that we did load testing, and the impact we came to the conclusion that if there's at least 22 seconds between user logins, there's no problems of load. And we'll be continuing to improve our performance over time, but we think this is a pretty good result. Our current user base includes various institutions in Montreal, the IUT Grenoble, IUT2 Grenoble School in France, and 2 graduate programs in Kyoto. We're looking for new adopters, and first come, first serve, new adopters will get special help from us. We've got some people interested in the USA, in Spain, and in Switzerland, and in a few more users interested in France. So we expect to be doubling our user base within the current year, if not tripling it. So now would be a good time to get involved. Here's a look at our new user interface that allows each institution to create a welcome page of their choice. In other words, skin it the way you might skin a Sakai instance. And to design the colors and the fonts and the structure of what designers and admins and students will see. So this is in a particular color scheme. Now, there's going to be a way to input the hex numbers and the banner for an institution in a relatively simple process. So there's going to be a minimum, if any, CSS involved in setting up the way Karuta will look at your institution. So this is how HEC Montréal set up their version of Karuta. So our roadmap. Karuta 1.2 will be released this month. It's mostly back-end improvements. We're going to continue our current deployments, all of which are interacting successfully with students. And we've got some new pilots getting started in Canada, France, Belgium, and the USA. Would you like to join this list? Karuta 2.0 is targeted for next February. It's going to have the improved user interface. We'll be able to share portfolios via public URLs. And we're going to have some enhancement with more user-friendly clickable descriptors and automatic scoring, and to be able for users to be able to request feedback or request the evaluation via email notification. There are lots of ways to find out more about Karuta. You can learn about us through the Karuta Project website, through the Apereo Foundation website. We have a test server where you can try out Karuta, and we're working on improving our documentation so that it'll make the role of a Karuta designer much easier in the future. You can follow us on Google+ or on Twitter. You can go get the code for Karuta by going to GitHub, and we'd be happy to field questions at any time. My colleague Jacques Reynaud was unfortunately called away today, but either of us would be happy to answer your questions about Karuta. In fact, now would be a good time to ask questions. We've got plenty of time left, and I can go back to any topic that we've covered or answer any questions you might have. So let's see, I'm going to go. Do we have any questions?
Not yet, so we'll see if we'll give some people some time to type. Okay, whoa, there's a question. This is from Jonas. Karuta seems to be so flexible that the learning curve to get started appears huge. Slide 18 is a good example. Can you demo a case where Karuta is integrated into Sakai using LTI 2?
So I'm not sure what number slide this is, but LTI 2, according to Dr. Chuck, is really almost the same as LTI 1. So in LTI 2, the user would log into Sakai, and so I'm going to answer the LTI question part of this first and then talk about how to create using the interface. The user would log into Sakai and go to a site in which Karuta is a tool. The user would look on the left-hand menu bar and find the Karuta tool, or whatever you wanted to call it, in Sakai. and click on that tool. The tool would then launch onto a separate window, much like you would see in front of us right now. So you'd be in Karuta and in Sakai at the same time, but Karuta would appear in a separate window. And you would be logged in as a student or an instructor or an evaluator or an administrator according to however your Sakai administrator set up the integration. So there's a batch script process that allows the admin for your Sakai instance to set up Karuta as a tool in the Sakai site where every user has a particular role in Karuta and a set of permissions that you've detailed, and the batch script sets that up in Sakai. If I haven't explained that sufficiently enough, please add to your question. Now, what actually happens in Karuta? The designer goes to a page where the designer creates a portfolio and then piece by piece, much like in the lessons tool, creates structures, creates unit structures. So it's very much like lessons where there's a menu where you can select what you want to create, and then once you've created a unit, you can type in the text so that you would see. So you would create a unit and type in a label, critical thinking, and then add a text field and type in the name of the text field definition and type in the text or copy and paste. And then you would add a resource. Actually, you'd add another unit structure that would contain a resource for the students to upload a document. So it's a set of menus that allow you to choose which action you want, which entity to accomplish in the portfolio process. You decide the level of the action, you decide what resource gets used, whether it's adding a document or making a comment or using a rubric, and you decide who has what role in each situation. We're currently simplifying the documentation in Karuta to have a quick and easy get started use case and set of instructions on the main designer page. This will be part of Karuta 2.0. I believe that you can learn to use Karuta effectively in an afternoon, especially if you either read our designer manual or attend one of our trainings. Typically, we've held trainings at the Open Apereo conference and spent most of an afternoon teaching people how to use Karuta. We also have 2 commercial affiliates who'd be happy to help you get started. Once you learn Karuta, it's easy to use, and we're working on that initial barrier to how do you use a flexible tool that seems a bit complex in a 1, 2, 3 get started way.
And you have a couple of other questions. Nicola
Yes.
said that currently they've experimented with a project site and used lessons, as well as they've used WordPress. And Nicola was wondering, what does Karuta offer that these options do not?
Well, I could see how if you combined lessons and WordPress, you might get to a similar place to Karuta. But what I liken Karuta to is a kind of, it's like conducting an orchestra of players, where in a portfolio workflow, the students do some things, the teachers do other things, the mentors or the evaluators do other things, the on-site preceptors do other things, the peers do other things. You can orchestrate a workflow so that there's social interaction in the portfolio process. And then at the end, the student can gather content, and Karuta 2.0 especially in February, gather content and display it to others to represent his or her learning process. Karuta allows the combination of rubrics, so rubrics containing various criteria and various descriptors at various scoring levels, and dashboards where students can track their own learning or instructors can track individual learnings, or reports which allow the aggregation of evaluations of learning, whether they be self-assessment or instructor assessment, and puts that all together in a workflow of the designer's choosing. So there is some similarity to lessons combined with WordPress, but it is all in one tool and adds the advantage of rubrics. I don't think lessons allows you to add rubrics into the process.
Okay, there's a few more questions. Vicki said she got late to the presentation. She wanted to know, is this free or what's the cost? Is it by campus or individual departments?
Okay, Karuta is an open source project. That means if you go to GitHub, that's a website, and you register as a GitHub user, you can download Karuta and try it out yourself. You can also go to our test server and try it out yourself there. Let me go to the slide at the end here. Whoops. Well, that didn't work. But here, I'm trying to get to the info slide. Okay. Like any open source product, anyone can use it, anyone can modify it. There is no license fee. You can integrate it with your Sakai using the code in Sakai and the code in Karuta to accomplish LTI integration. The only catch is you might, if you need, well, it's not a catch, it's an opportunity. If you need assistance in understanding how to use portfolios in general, or if you need assistance in learning how to use Karuta, we do have 2 commercial affiliates, much like Sakai has commercial affiliates, that can help you with hosting if you need it, with installation if you need it, integration if you need it, and the design and construction of portfolios that meet your particular needs. That part would cost money. Everything else is free. So we are doing our best to make it freely available, and we're also available to help.
Okay, there's another question from Nicola. Can feedback from instructors be private on the portfolio, but the portfolio also be public?
Yes. There's an intricate system of semantic tagging and role creation that allows different items to be seen by different entities. And the final product in sharing a public portfolio does not need to include any of that. It also might be I'm not sure about this one. We're still working out some of the ways of sharing public portfolios, but users may be able to decide who sees what, or the designer can decide who sees what. This is always a portfolio question. How much freedom are students given to share anything they want, or how much orchestration is put into the portfolio process by the designer? But yes, privacy is a very important concept in portfolio creation, and the designer needs to think carefully about what should be public and what should be private.
Okay, we still have 5 minutes left. And Vicki, thank you for the information about the cost, that there's no cost. And Nicola had a question about, can you give feedback and see all portfolios from one place? She said that keeping track of all portfolios can be challenging.
Well, our dashboard concept goes a long way toward seeing all of the feedback that students have been given in one place in a report aggregated form. So a dashboard can be the record of an individual's receipt of feedback or a self-evaluation, or it can be an aggregation of individuals. And I am not sure that we've accomplished this next thing yet, but we certainly will be. There should be a way to drill down to individual portfolios from the aggregate of data. The reports, if any of you ever worked on OSP, you know that things like reports required coding. Well, Karuta has a user interface that allows any designer to set up a report without having to know any coding, learning a few simple steps to understand how to set up individual dashboards and aggregate reports using the user interface allows you to see that data. It's a great step forward. Any more questions, Becky?
No. Oh, hold it. That I spoke too soon. There's another question. They were typing for a while. Let's see. It was a project site on Vula, VULA, with lessons or WordPress, not together. Wondering if I could combine best of both using something like this. Also tried Mahara before, not user-friendly and a little customization. There's got to be an easy-to-use tool where privacy is important and that it's flexible for multiple purposes. Had 100 WordPress sites or portfolios for a course and used a Google spreadsheet and RSS, but the process of keeping track of it in a central place can be better. Wow.
Yeah, I can imagine. That would be hard. WordPress and Mahara focus on displaying portfolios as opposed to the process of assessing learning and using the portfolio for learning itself. Karuta tries, and I think succeeds in many ways, in doing all types of portfolios, and it's worth trying. And an advantage of our small team is that we're very attentive to user needs, and you can dialogue with us about what Karuta does well and what Karuta could improve upon, because we're actively developing the application right now, moving very fast through versions. And the more people who adopt it and help us move forward, the better. We're also looking.
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Nicola said that she's really looking forward to something that has the educator and student in mind, so she's looking forward to trying it out.
Great. Please be in touch and let us know what you think. Any other questions?
Not right now, and we've only got a couple of minutes. So if anyone has questions, this is the time.
Well, now that Karuta has become an official Apereo project, our next steps are to achieve more adoption so that we can experience more use cases and further customize our software to meet your needs. But we're also looking for partners, people who want to influence how Karuta progresses, people who want to own a piece of the pie. No open source project succeeds without more people joining in to keep it alive and keep it growing. So please check us out and think about how you might participate in our community. And thanks very much for attending our session.
Thank you. Thanks a lot.
Thank you, Becky.
You're welcome. Thanks, Janice. Goodbye, everybody.
Bye.
You got some more thanks from people.
Great.